Hello. This is the fourth, correction. This is the fourth, part of the lessons that I have received from Sun Tzu. We are still on chapter 1. We will be, discussing verses 16 through 26 to the end of the chapter. I would like to say that some of these verses will be difficult to look at from a introspective point of view or perspective, because the literal translation is meant for an opponent, someone opposite than yourself. But for those that I can use to gauge myself, I will explain those verses. So starting at verse 16, it says, "While heeding the profit of my counsel, avail yourself also of any helpful circumstances over and beyond the ordinary rules." So first of all, a clear understanding of that scripture and how it pertains to us, rather it's us dealing with our lower energies or the discrepancies we have with ourselves or with another person. First of all, as it says, according as circumstances are favorable, one should modify one's plans. First and foremost, anyone that has ever practiced any type of combat sport or art or any type of kung fu discipline, and that has got into a altercation where they had to use the skills that they had been training, for years, to develop, they will tell you that the way you train, in the dojo, even though they try to make training sessions as realistic as possible, a lot of things that you learn in the dojo, you can use them, but you won't be able to use them the way you were shown to use them. For example, you may do a kata, you may get taught a kata, but in an actual confrontation, you may be able to use bits and pieces of that kata in broken rhythm, because combat can be chaotic, tumultuous. It can be very ugly. It's not, the practice and discipline is beautiful, but the actual combat, its physical expression could be barbaric looking. It can even look like the person who is executing a particular technique doesn't have any skill, because the movements look rough and unpolished. So we say that sometimes strategy has to be formulated according to the situation. We can't go into a particular situation with a fixed set of addressing a problem, because the nature of that problem may cause conflict with your strategy, to overcome that challenge. So being able to modify one's plans and not being fixed and set, even though one has trained for years and one has a discipline, to still have that type of freedom of mind to be able to assess the situation and respond accordingly as the situation presents itself. So verse 17 is very important, because from your own perspective, you have to be able to get out of your own patterns, your own conditions, when it comes to being able to, engage in conflict. It's just like, a silly example. I have VHS tapes and I love to watch VHS tapes. But my friend, he has a DVD player, and his DVD player only take DVDs. And even though I think VHS is awesome, Um, I will have to wait till I'm in a more familiar setting to enjoy that VHS tapes, because my friend has a DVD player. So we have to be able to make adjustments with as little stress as possible so that our movements and our strategy can be proficient and efficient. So, okay, that's 17. And the next verse is 18. It says, all warfare is based on deception. Most people will look at that and, think about, being cunning, tricking, your opponent. But you can use deception when you know that you have the ability to disrupt someone's energy who is being hostile towards you. But you understand that if you play as if you are unable to do damage to this person, and this person believes that you can't do damage to them, and you remain humble and walk away, and the entire time that person who you walked away from think that they have intimidated you and that they could have did all manner of things to you when you knew that you were capable of, making the wine spill from the cup, so to speak. So some people use that verse to be deceitful, to be, to use cunning, to overcome one's opponent, because we do that, in combat sports. You might fake to the body and give them a headshot and take them out. The art of war is based upon deception. You may get him focused on his upper body, but you want to take his legs out. The art of war is based upon deception. So, okay, and verse 19 is, hence, when able to attack, we must seem unable. When using our forces, we must seem inactive. When we are near, we must make the enemy believe we are far away. When we are far away, we must make him believe we are near. The basic understanding of verse 19, in the most simplistic form, is do not inform your opponent of the intelligence that you have, knowing his weaknesses, knowing his positions, knowing his areas of strength. You pretend, to not be able to handle, his energy. You pretend to be, foolish when you are wise, because only a wise person can play foolish, but a foolish person can't play wise. So, we have, a tendency, us young people, is to, let people know what we're planning on doing out of anger, giving them the opportunity to formulate, a strategy to counteract your strategy that you divulge through anger. So it's difficult to address the ego. See, when you haven't mastered the ego, that's why we use the art of war, to address ourselves, to know who we are first before we attempt to observe an opponent and engage in combat. We must know what we're capable of, know our strengths, know our weaknesses. And one weakness for the young man in these days and times is we love to tell people what we gonna do. And then once the authorities find out about it and lock you up, now everybody's snitching. But you just told the world what you was gonna do. That's enough of that example. It says, hold out baits to entice the enemy. Feign disorder and crush him. Holding out baits to entice the enemy, going back to, a combat sport, example. I may present my leg in a vulnerable like fashion to entice my opponent to go for it. And when I'm thinking about when he go in for the single leg, takedown, to knee him in the face. So, you feign disorder, meaning that you pretend like you don't know what's going on or you don't know what's coming. But the whole time you've already prepared for the arrival of your opponent. And you will allow him to lead himself to his own demise. The same way with our inner self. We continue to watch, not to get upset, not to judge, but to observe our mental state, to observe our emotional state, to observe our physical functionings. We are to observe without judgment, and without hostility. And then it said, crush him. You understand? So we want to crush those aspects within us that are not pleasing and are not a part of who we really are. We want to strip away those things that we are not. And in order to do that, we must see these things and know that they are not us, but energy, in the form of thoughts, in the form of behaviors, in the form of conditionings that are not conducive to that of a warrior. And then it says, if he is secure at all points, be prepared for him. If he is in superior strength, evade him. So we must be able to acknowledge when we face the possibility of being overwhelmed because we are frustrated, because we are stressed, and we need to be prepared for the stimuli that is going to come our way that causes us to react negatively, causes us to give up our power and to lose. And if it's of superior strength, it says evade him. We know that means to get away from that person. If that person is too strong and he's going to overtake you, and that the livelihood of yourself or your family is in danger, then you must get away. But from a spiritual perspective, when those negative energies become too hostile and overwhelming, we must flee. But we flee in the form of prayer. We flee in the form of japa. We flee in the form of exercise. We flee in the form of research, so that when we come back and it's time to, for the rabbit to have the gun and the hunter got to run, we can do some pretty work. But we have to be able to see. That's why, to me, the most important aspects of the art of war are the scriptures or the verses that help me understand myself better. Not to overcome an opponent outside of myself, but to overcome the biggest enemy, which is myself. So I want to use these tactics, these military tactics, on myself, on my mind, on my body, for the exploration of my spirit. Because I'm using this text as the premise for psychological and spiritual warfare, but it gives you principles that work, that compose organization and strategy. So we're learning to build a foundation as it pertains to introspection. Okay, and it says 22. If your opponent is of a choleric temper, seek to irritate him. Pretend to be weak that he may grow arrogant. That I can only see that for an outward opponent. I wouldn't recommend, attempting to anger the negative energies and the traumatic memories that you have. So I wouldn't, advise stirring up, that hornet's nest, so to speak. It says to pretend to be weak, just remain humble. You don't have to pretend to be weak. Just remain humble. Most people take humbleness for a weakness. So you don't have to pretend to be weak. Just be humble. People mistake humility for cowardice. They mistake humility for lack of knowledge and lack of intelligence. And the wise know that's far from the truth. Okay? If he is taking his ease, give him no rest. If his forces are united, separate them. Now, that one, verse 23, we can apply that to the self. If those things that are undesirable in you, whether those are thoughts, habits, you understand, you don't allow them to rest within you. You continue to combat those issues with research, with prayer, with japa meditation. And as those negative energies begin to, come together, come against your energetic ideals, you have to develop practices that will break up this, mound, of dirt on the mirror of your heart. So we need methods to be able to break up that dirt, to break up that ignorance that has befuddled, our thinking facilities, that has contaminated our intelligence. We need systems that will be able to break up those things that, keep us filthy and our self-esteem low and keep us from expressing the divine gifts and talents that the Supreme has given us. And that's a whole nother topic of discussion as far as unlocking human ability, starting with self-inquiry or self-inquiry. So 24 says, attack him where he is unprepared. Appear where you are not expected. A way to, address what the Sufis call Hawa, Dunya, and Satan. One of the ways to, get out of Hawa and Dunya is to fast. Start to deny your body at times food. Because, the ego loves to eat, to gorge itself. It takes pleasure in over gratifying oneself with these gross substances. We have to, eat, because, of the fall and our lower vibrational frequency. So, the ego loves to gratify itself with these things. So we take these things away. We attack him where he's unprepared. The ego is always unprepared to lose any type of stronghold. Whether that's clothes, shoes, overeating, overdrinking, a gambling addiction. There are many, the ego loves its stronghold, even to its own demise. it's so overwhelming that the ego will gorge itself until your spirit have to leave your body. So the ego, while attempting to preserve itself by keeping you a slave, is destroying you at the same time. So it will destroy itself. And 25 says, these military devices leading to victory need not be divulged beforehand, meaning just learning how to keep your mouth closed and not reveal everything to people who are looking to defeat you. And it says, 26, the last one, now the general that wins a battle makes many calculations in his temple. The battle is fought. The general who loses a battle makes but few calculations beforehand. Thus do many calculations lead to victory and few calculations to defeat. How much more no calculation at all? It is by attention to this point I can foresee who is likely to win or to lose. This is called the temple, where God resides. We need to use this. Make those many calculations. Play these scenarios out in your head over and over and over again, many times, many angles, looking at different circumstances that will cause you to change your strategy in yourself and your opponent. So, as a man thinketh, so is he on the battlefield. You are beyond thought. There's no thought that you can think that is worthy of you, who you really are, and the infinite spiritual magnitude of your own nature. So man is not what he think, because there isn't a sublime enough thought to express the magnitude of who you are. So just remember verse 26. Let's start thinking. Sun Tzu also said, ponder and deliberate before you make a move. We got to start using those 5 P's. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. Sun Tzu said, ponder and deliberate before you make a move. Not just about trying to get over on an opponent, trying to hurt someone. Dig into yourself. Ponder and deliberate before you make a move. Before you act on your habits that you know gonna get you in trouble. Before you act on those conditionings that will lead you to, a degenerate place. Stop and think. That concludes the first chapter of The Art of War. Chapter 2 is I'm ready to get into it because I'm going to bring it from a different perspective. Namaste.